Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield audio podcast.
So from time to time, we'll stop with these podcasts, drop back a little bit, and answer questions from previous podcasts. And one of the podcasts that I did some time ago had to do with birth rates and median age in the Middle East and what this is going to do in terms of our history and our current crises and our culture and world events. And so I've got some really good questions here that I want to address. One person wanted to address the whole question of immigration. And particularly in America, because I was talking about median birth rates and Hispanic birth rates and so on, particularly in America, what is our goal as a nation? Are we trying to keep all non-American, really whites, some would say, but all non-Americans out? Are we building walls, along our southern border with Mexico to keep people out completely? What's the line between a healthy kind of nationalism and then just pure white supremacy? Because I'm sure we're all aware that some of the anti-immigrant rhetoric and fire in our country is anti-Mexican, it's anti-Hispanic, it's anti-people with brown skin, to some extent. I think the issue, and I'd like to look back at history just for a moment, all countries are the products of immigration to some extent. There are hardly any sort of pure countries in which that populace has lived there forever, not intermarried with anybody else, not welcomed immigrants. I mean, almost every country in the world is a result of a kind of a polyglot, melting pot immigration kind of dynamic. That's just normal. I think what is unique about American immigration now, what is creating the crisis, is that perhaps for the first time, at least that I'm aware of in Western history, there is an allowing of an illegal immigration that then does not have a process for integration. That there's not a required or mandated process for learning the language, for integrating through citizenship, for understanding the distinctives of American society, and American history, American values, and becoming part of an American vision, an American democracy, maybe to some extent an American culture. I need to say that I think America is strengthened by immigration. I think America is strengthened by having people of different ethnicities and backgrounds. And when immigrants first begin to come in, we can think back to the Ellis Island experience, late 1800s, early 1900s, as Europeans began to flood into, and other nations, other cultures began to flood into America. We were strengthened as a country, and yet for a while, those people didn't learn English right away, or they didn't quite get integrated. But citizenship was the goal. Integration was the goal. Learning English was the goal. What they were not doing was coming across the border for a short period of time, making money, and then returning to another country without an intention to invest here. They were coming with an intention to invest here. So I definitely think that there is an un-American, and I would say an un-Christian kind of racism that is fueling some of the anti-immigration debate. No question about it. At the same time, I think we have to realize that what's happening now in America is that we have tens of millions of a certain kind of immigrant who is not on any course for integrating into the thought forms, into the culture, into the political ideals of our society. And if that continues, you will have an underclass that receives benefits but is not being integrated in a constructive way into citizenship. And I think that's going to be a problem. There's another question that's come up about that talk that I did on birth rates and how it's shaping our society. And it has to do with some statements I made about the birth rates of blacks and Hispanics. And some people wanted to know what accounts for this difference in birth rates. Let me restate the statistic I gave. The African American birth rate in America is twice that of the white birth rate, but the Hispanic birth rate is 5 times that of the white birth rate. And in order for us to understand what the factors are here, why this difference occurs, we have to understand some religious factors in these cultures. I mean, I'm of the opinion, and this is what a lot of my writing and teaching is devoted to, that if you're going to understand culture, religion is one of the primary factors of culture. There are other factors, of course, but religion's the primary factor. And the reality is that the vast majority of Hispanics in America, as is true in the world, are Roman Catholic. The Roman Catholic Church, of course, teaches the virtue of large families, teaches against birth control, and of course is heatedly against abortion. So a Roman Catholic informed culture is going to have a high birth rate. That's just a reality, and that is consistently true throughout the world wherever you have large Hispanic cultures. The black birth rate is less than half of the Hispanic birth rate because, of course, it is almost completely non-Roman Catholic. It is almost completely, and it's not very much shaped by the values of a kind of conservative Christianity that would be anti-abortion and against birth control. African Americans, for the most part, do practice birth control. African Americans, for the most part, are open to. Now, this is not universally true, but statistically, the majority of African Americans are in favor or at least open to the practice of abortion. So you therefore have a much smaller, a much lower birth rate. Because again, you don't have that Roman Catholic influence, and you do not have, for the most part, political and theological conservatism throughout most of the African American community in America. Most African Americans vote Democratic. Most African Americans, I'd say about half of African Americans, are in churches or denominations that are at least open to abortion and at least open to birth control. And then, of course, the white birth rate in America is very much a result of the valuing of small families and pro-abortion. The average person who goes to an abortion clinic is white. She's young, and she's getting and statistically, the thing that fuels most abortions is what's called vanity abortions, and that's an insulting term. But it doesn't mean the crisis abortion of an impoverished mother. It means the 16-year-old who got pregnant and doesn't want to care for a child and has permission from her parents to get an abortion. That's statistically the range of most abortions. Dr. George Grant has done some research on this and has confirmed, based on Planned Parenthood statistics, that the average woman getting an abortion is able to identify a church of some sort, is white, and is under 20. And so that explains very much the kind of values that are working in white society. So keep your eye on religion and how it shapes the issues of birth control, large families, and abortion, whatever you're analyzing in the world, and you'll find that it makes a huge difference. One more question then, I think a very, very, very important one. I made a statement some time ago on the same talk that the West was requiring small families. I misspoke. I should have said the West was encouraging small families. This is a very, very important topic because for many, many years, we've had a theme in our society of the population explosion. It was huge back in the 70s. The idea was that the population was growing exponentially, that we were outstripping our resources, and there were books like Population Bomb and themes like Population Explosion, and the idea was that human population would simply outgrow the resources the earth could provide. That began, of course, to feed a lot of the abortion thinking and small family thinking in the West. Well, that really took hold, even though some of that population explosion type thinking has been disproven, and scientists like Norman Borlaug and so on have developed forms of wheat that more than take care of the need worldwide as long as governments get out of the way and the distribution is fair. I think we've seen that there's not this massive population explosion that's going to outstrip resources, but instead I think that what we have to realize is that much of the thinking of that age, where you value small families, you encourage abortion, you encourage birth control, is still very, very dominant. For example, many UN publications encourage it and what have you. And so as a result, in the West, largely in Europe, largely in America, you still have a small family kind of value. You still practice birth control. You still encourage abortion. And that accounts for the huge birth rate differences between, say, Africa and the Middle East on the one hand, and Europe and America on the other. And as I said in that talk, that's going to make a huge difference in our culture as these years unfold.
you.